Okay, we are now recording.
Oh, Shane, that's good. Shane's in the district.
Okay, good.
He owns a Widmer's house,
Oh, all right.
one of the original Widmer's houses.
Oh, very nice. Great.
And I think he's already applied for some credits.
Okay.
Not yet.
Not yet. Hi, Shane.
Hi.
But you're going to, right?
We are.
Good.
Papa
Good.
needs a new roof.
Well, that's good. You'll learn some information tonight about how to do that. We're just giving it a few minutes, waiting to see if anybody else comes into the meeting, and then we'll get started. Hopefully, I know that we had about, I don't know, anywhere from 8 to 9 other people outside of our SHPO staff and the team from Naples signed up. So maybe we'll get a few more in.
I had a couple get in touch with me. One of them didn't want to wait for the recording, so I think he'll be on tonight. And the other one was wondering about her house on Mount Pleasant, and I don't think it's in the district. So it's the Clark house.
Okay.
So we'll see. There was a little problem with the link.
Yes. Yeah, we had our landmark website went down, so the link people had to register wasn't going to work. Got another one here.
Right.
But hopefully people were able to get the link that Caitlin and I sent out to all of you, or were already registered. So
Yes, I used the link you forwarded to register.
oh, that's good. Welcome, John. We're just giving it a few minutes, getting a few more people into the meeting, and we are recording right now, so this will go up again later that you can rewatch or share with your neighbors. We're just giving it a couple more minutes here, and then we can get started. I'll give it another minute until 6:05, and then I don't want to keep everybody.
So Megan, did Ryan stay local or move on?
He went back down to Savannah, Georgia.
Oh my.
Wow.
He had a great opportunity, though.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Are you going to replace him or?
We're hoping to. It'll probably not be until the fall when that happens, but we're hoping to.
You know, one of my classmates is actually an historic preservation architect in Savannah.
Oh, wow. I wonder, Ryan, our former colleague who just left about a month ago, he probably knows who he is then. They've probably worked together.
Probably have by now. Yeah.
All right. Well,
That's
we'll go
good
ahead and get
stuff.
started. I think we've only got 2 people here outside of the Naples team that's been working on the project, but we'll get started. This is being recorded, so you can share this with your neighbors, your friends, other people who might be interested in this presentation. So welcome everybody. I'm Megan Clem. I'm a preservation planner with the Landmark Society of Western New York. We are a regional nonprofit preservation organization. We work in the Genesee Valley and Finger Lakes regions, but we're based in Rochester. I am one of two of the preservation planners at Landmark that has been working on the 4 different nominations that we've completed or almost completed for Naples. And tonight we're going to be talking about the Naples Viniculture Historic District. As you can imagine, that's up around the now Hazlitt complex, but also includes a few residences along North Main Street, Toby Street, and West Avenue as well. I'm going to kick things off right away and introduce Virginia Bartos and Christina Vagvolgi. They're from the State Historic Preservation Office. They'll be talking to you tonight about the National Register nomination and the process for that. And then that'll be with Virginia. And then Christina will take things over and share with you about the tax credit program that you may be eligible to utilize now. So without further ado, Virginia, I will kick this over to you. I'm going to pin you while you're presenting.
You're on mute.
Virginia, I'm going to make you a co-host. I don't know if that will help you be able to share the
It was
screen.
just trying to get to my screen.
Okay.
I think I might be there now. Yeah, there we are. I just have too much up.
That's okay.
There we go. Come on, slideshow. There we go. All right. Some of you have seen this before, so I just want to apologize if you hear it, and I'll try not to make you fall asleep. But if any of you, if this is the first time you've ever had, a connection with the National Register, what I'm going to do tonight is try and give you a little bit of background as to what the National Register is, what the State Historic Preservation Office does, because not a lot of people are familiar with who we are, and also too, why we're doing this historic district. Okay, so first, my title slide here is we've got all kinds of things that are listed on the National Register, including Sonnenberg Gardens, which was listed in 1973. And you can see we can go from the grand to the, I don't want to say average, but the one on the bottom is a really nice house and an important house too. It's the Minerva and Daniel DeLand House in Fairport, which was just listed in 2020. The National Register is the oldest historic preservation program established by Congress. It was established by the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966. And what it did was set up guidelines for evaluating buildings, sites, objects, districts, and structures to add to this federal list, which is known as the National Register. These are items of state, local, and national importance. And the State Historic Preservation Office was created shortly after the passage of the act, because originally it was just a state historic preservation officer. And with one officer being in all the states and all of the territories, it kind of got, well, a bit much. So they created the State Historic Preservation Officers or offices. And it's what, well, let me just move on to the next slide. And this is what we do, the State Historic Preservation Office. We do a number of things all geared towards historic preservation. And the texts that we have are right on there: surveys, certified local government program, tax credit programs, the National Register, and working with other historic preservation agencies like the Landmark Society. And the whole point for this is to assist communities on using historic preservation as part of their local planning tools. And foremost, to provide recognition for resources deemed historic for communities. And like the Secretary of the Interior, we can't do it all. So that's why it's great to partner with groups like the Landmark Society. And the whole point is to assist municipalities, organizations, and individuals with preservation and help them turn this into this. That's the whole point. Anyway, there are all kinds of things that can be listed on the National Register. These two resources are on the register. You may not think so, but they're there. As long as it can be documented and meet criteria for listing, and a case can be made to the National Park Service, it can be recognized. It can be listed on the register. When you look at the criteria, they look like they're fairly general. The resource must be related to events, trends, patterns of history, or be connected to a significant individual, or represent a particular type of architecture, be the work of a master, like someone like a Frank Lloyd Wright. There's another category for archaeology, and that means that if there's something out there that has the potential to yield information. I have to say that probably 95% of our listings on the National Register go with either the patterns of history, the individuals, significant individuals, or the particular types of architecture. There's exceptions to all the rules, and some people will say, well, you can't list this and you can't list it. Well, yeah, you can. But there are some categories that the Park Service asks for you to do a little more documentation. And these are what they call criteria considerations, or what I call exceptions, okay? For instance, cemeteries are an exception, okay? What they have to do is they have to be a particular design or type of cemetery. They have to be extremely old. They have to show, they might show funerary art, have spectacular monuments in there, wonderful collection of art, or this always gets me, they must have persons of transcendent importance, which is National Park Service talk for someone very famous like Frederick Douglass, who is buried in Mount Hope Cemetery. Churches, a lot of people think that churches cannot be listed. Yes, they can. They fit into this exceptional category too. And again, because they're of a particular design type, like up the image in the upper right, that's the Manhasset Monthly Quaker Meeting House, or the one next to it, Temple Beth El in Hornell. These are particular types of designs, one a Jewish synagogue and another one a Quaker meeting house. They follow a particular format, a particular style. Or again, it might be the work of a master, like the building below, which is in Rochester, which is the Unitarian Church, designed by Louis Kahn. And that's listed on the National Register. Okay. Now, another category that can get listed are districts, which is the reason why we're here tonight. These are groupings of resources that not only share a similar age or design, but a history as well. For instance, we're looking at the Brockport West Side Historic District, which a lot of it developed because of its close locale to the to SUNY Brockport. Right? That got listed in 2021, that historic district. This district in Greece, this one was developed by people who worked at Kodak, and it has the name Coda Vista. That was listed in 2019. This is one street in the city of Rochester, the Arvine Heights Historic District in the 19th Ward. And this is a remnant of a slightly larger development that was developed by a woman in the early 20th century. One of the few women real estate developers in Rochester. In historic districts, they can be residential, like the ones that we just saw, or they can be commercial, like this one here in Geneva, the Geneva Downtown Historic District. They usually show the development of the economic heart of the community. This one had a lot of, had its initial development related to not so much the Erie Canal, but the Seneca-Cayuga Canal, which was one of those feeder canals that went up that did connect to the Erie Canal, but also connected both Seneca and Cayuga lakes. So very important for early 19th century commerce. Now, why would you want to get some of these things listed, especially in a historic district? Well, it's because there's a program out there for federal commercial tax credits. And it's one of the movers, well, one of the impetuses for getting things listed. As you can see here, it's for commercial, industrial, agricultural, or residential rental properties. Now, it says it has to be certified historic structures, and that means it either has to be listed on the National Register, either individually or as part of a historic district, or part of what we call a certified historic district. There are communities across the state that are called certified local governments, which is another special program. Rochester is a certified local government. And let's say you're looking at a historic district, but you realize that it may not be able to get listed on the National Register, but you can certify it, work with us to get it certified as a local historic district. It sounds kind of odd, but anyway, what we will say is, yes, we will certify this historic district. We'll send the information to Washington, and you can get this district technically not listed, but certified. So people can participate in the tax credit. The tax credit is 20% of the amount that you put into the rehabilitation, and I stress it's a rehabilitation, not a restoration. Okay. There's no upper limit on the credit, but properties in qualifying census tracts, which Rochester's one, you guys are in Naples, I believe you're in one too. The properties can get, the owners of these properties can get an additional New York State tax credit of up to 20 to 30%, depending on the size of the project. For smaller projects, it's 30%. For larger projects, it's 20%. So these federal commercial rehabilitation tax credits can be pretty good for commercial properties. And then there's another one, which Christina is going to talk about. So I'm just kind of going to gloss over this one, and it's the New York State residential program. Again, you have to be in a qualified census tract, which Naples is. And Christina will go into more of the details, but it's for, again, for rehabilitation, not for restoration, even though I have to admit, they are restoring the exterior on this building. It had been in Irondequoit. It had been covered with vinyl. And one of the things that you can do is you can get the vinyl off, fix the exterior, and get your tax credit if you're listed on the National Register and in a qualifying census tract. Churches, one of the advantages to getting listed in New York State is you have access to what's called the Sacred Sites Program. It's a program out of New York City, the New York Landmarks Conservancy. They give small grants and loans for bricks and mortar work on buildings that are listed on the National Register. For instance, this one, St. Mark's and Leroy, they were working on storm window repairs. Since they're one of the few, they are like the only place that a lot of churches can apply to, these grants can be very competitive. So when people ask me about them, I usually tell them, if you get turned or don't get the grant the first year, try again the second year. My church in Albany, we needed roof repairs. We were turned down the first time, second time we applied, we got the grant. So you got to just be persistent. And now what we're here tonight to talk about is the Naples Viniculture Historic District. And I think what I would like to do is, the Landmark Society is the one that's been working on documenting this historic district. And I'm waiting for, I'm waiting for Megan to finish up working on this. So I don't want to say anything untoward other than what's holding this together is not so much that we have buildings here that share a different age or a style. They run the gamut of ages here. What's holding them together here is the Widmer's Winery, which is now Hazlitt Winery. This area here has a direct connection to the viniculture. Actually, you could probably argue that all of Naples has close ties to viniculture, but this grouping in particular, and even St. Januarius, when you go down and when you look at their parish hall, you see that wonderful, I don't want to call it a diagram, but it's like a sculpture against the parish hall, which is grapes and vines and people working in the grape fields. So you see there's a lot going on here that all ties into Naples, grapes, wine, grape pie, all that other things. The grape festival. So that's one of the things that holds this particular historic district together. So Megan, do you want to talk a little bit more about it?
Sure, I can jump in real quick. Yeah, so I guess I meant to mention that when I was doing sort of the welcome at the beginning was a little bit more about why we did the Naples Viniculture Historic District. And let me just see if I can pin myself here so that you can see me. Okay. So we did 4 different districts in Naples. We were contracted with the village and have had a lot of input from the Historical Society, members of the Historical Society. So if you were at our previous public meeting with SHPO, we talked about the Fairview Cemetery, which was listed individually, and then we have the Central Naples Historic District, which is the commercial core, and then the surrounding residential areas. And then we have a South Main Historic District, which is the southern end, just before you cross over the bridge. And so our final one that we're working on now, and I'm doing some final editing to, is the Naples Viniculture Historic District. And as Virginia mentioned, the significance behind this district and why it's being nominated to the National Register of Historic Places is for its history and significance tied to viniculture in the Naples Valley, specifically around the Widmer Winery and the Widmer family throughout history. So a lot of these buildings, obviously it includes the winery complex that you can see in this outline here, as well as the valley floor vineyards, which historically and originally the Widmer vineyards were actually up on the hill behind. And as technology changed, it moved to vineyards on the floor. And that's why you see kind of grown forest or woods up on the hill now, and the vines are along North Main Street. Then it also includes a lot of residential properties, some of them being some of the Widmer family's original homes that they had constructed. Other ones were for people that worked for the winery. And then again, other buildings like St. Januarius that was constructed in 1966, I believe I have that right. And while it wasn't directly connected to the winery itself, as Virginia mentioned, some of the architectural detailing to it really pull in the viniculture history that it surrounds that building. So you have that very interesting roof line that's sort of like a grape leaf, and all these other architectural details, and just its placement really pulls that in and ties in with the district, and showing, you know, the importance of winemaking in Naples. So what we're doing now is I had submitted a preliminary draft to be reviewed by Virginia, which had actually left out some of the properties just north of the original Woodmere home on North Main Street. But after being contacted by your mayor and some of the other people who live in these houses, we actually were able to find out, and I had the help of Blanche Warner as well, to do a little background research on these homes to make sure that they were actually also related to the Widmer Winery. So we were able to expand the district a little further up north along Main Street than we originally had, as well as capturing some of the properties across the street from the vineyard that were not originally in our historic district that we were writing. So right now I'm finishing up some edits that Virginia's asked for, as well as adding in some of these additional properties. And as she mentioned,
Megan,
yes.
across from our place there, which is on the north end, that vineyard that's sitting there that's not part of the district.
Right.
That was farmed by the Widmers. I have old pictures of that his group, taking care of those vineyards, with our house in the background. So that section that's right across the street from our place, which is 182 North Main. I mean,
Okay.
that
Well,
was
that's,
one.
no, we're doing some research into figuring out, what's changed about some of these things as well.
Okay.
Because not all the vineyards are still there. So pretty much the boundary you see here, there's reasoning for it. But we can certainly take a look at that additional vineyard to
Right,
see.
and the other thing we need to be careful too about is the Central Naples Historic District, which is rather large. And we don't have it on here, but we need to check and see if 182 is already in the Central Naples Historic District. If it is, we don't have to worry about it. But then if it isn't, then it's something we need to consider now about.
Right.
Well, 182 North is in the vinicultural one.
Right, it's up north of St. Januarius along North Main Street. So it is outside of the central Naples.
Okay.
So we are taking a look at that, and we added in these additional properties that we found out actually did have to do with viniculture history here. So as you can see, this district includes industrial complex. It includes some vineyards themselves, as well as residential properties, and then also a church. And as Virginia mentioned, while the church may not be able to necessarily take part in the tax credit programs that she mentioned, and Christina will talk about later, being listed in the district, there is an advantage for them because now they're eligible for the Landmarks the Sacred Sites Grant Program. Same thing with the now Hazlitt Winery. It could open them up to being eligible to other types of preservation grant programs. And then, of course, homeowners being able to utilize the homeowner tax credit that Christine will talk about a little later. So really the impetus behind this district itself is the whole winemaking industry and history that happened here in the Naples Valley, and tying it into the significance in the Finger Lakes region and then nationally. Because as we know, the Finger Lakes region wine culture and winemaking is actually, as people say, on par with what you'd see out in California or other things like that. So we tie it not only into the significance here locally, but we tie it into a national context as well.
Right. And it's important to recognize this particular area, Naples too, because a lot of people, when they think wine, they're thinking Penyan, Keuka Lake, Hammondsport. Those are the areas that usually get a lot of play. Some areas on Seneca Lake too. So not so much Naples. So it's time to bring this back. I mean, there was a lot of emphasis on grapes, grape culture in the late 19th and early 20th century, and it's time to bring it all back. So it's important to get this documented. And also too, if the Hazlitt Winery needs to do some major rehabilitation work on some of their historic buildings, they would be prime candidates for the federal commercial tax credit.
Right.
Sorry, I jumped in there, Megan.
No, that's great. So I know that we only have a couple people outside of the group that's been working on this. So I don't know if you have questions as far as the boundary itself and what we have included. It also takes a look at, alterations that have happened to other properties, or for example, the little kind of weird triangle shape that's cut out towards the southwest corner of the district. That's because that has a new building for the school district on it where the bus garage is. And so that parcel is not part of the district. So it creates a little bit of an odd shape. Over on the east side of the district, kind of south of where these lines kind of jag across North Main Street, that happens like that because actually the properties south of those boundary lines are in our central Naples Historic District. And so that's kind of a boundary cutoff. And so it is important to note that once these districts are listed, the majority of the village of Naples will be listed on the National Register of Historic Places, which is also a pretty interesting and great feat in itself. You don't typically see full villages or towns or things like that listed. So this is pretty interesting as well.
And I should add to that, right now, these districts are the ones, the South Main and Central Naples are listed on the state register. South Main, partly because I've been kind of dragging my feet and getting everything pulled together. So I need to work on that one to get it down to Washington for its final review. And the Central, Megan's working on some edits that we asked for on that one. And the Fairview Cemetery, it turns out there's a Native American connection with that one. So we have to send it to the Tribal Historic Preservation Office to have a look at. And our archaeology unit has been helping me pull together some information. And I just got it. So once I get that pulled together and we send it up to the TIPO, then we'll be able to proceed from there.
Right. And as far as process right now on this historic district for the Viniculture Historic District, it's in my lap right now at the Landmark Society. As I mentioned, I'm making some edits from the preliminary draft that I had sent Virginia that she requested some additional information on, as well as putting in these other properties that we're now adding in now that we know that they were also connected to Woodmere's Winery originally. That is due to Virginia Friday, which I'm on track to get to her. And if I do that, the goal for what we're aiming is that it will go to the September State Review Board meeting then, which means it gets reviewed by the State Review Board. They do a vote and that would get listed to the state register. And then from there, Virginia will let me know if there's any additional comments that the review board has, and we might have to make some edits or adjustments to it based on that. And then from there, it gets sent down to the National Park Service at the federal level. And that's where it gets listed to the National Register of Historic Places.
Yeah, let me just finish up on the whole process. Now, everyone in all the property owners in the district, the viniculture district, should have gotten this piece of paper in the mailing that tells them that we're doing this historic district. Your property is part of the historic district. Actually, it makes it sound like, oh, your property is getting listed on the National Register, when it's actually district that's getting listed on the National Register. But this information gets sent out to kind of inform people about what does it mean for a property that's on the National Register. So we have this wonderful FAQ sheet. Hopefully that will answer a lot of people's questions. But if they still have questions, don't see the answer on this FAQ sheet, then I usually tell people, have them give me a call or send me an email, and I'm glad to answer whatever questions or discuss whatever concerns they might have about the listing, the Viniculture Historic District and the National Register. Now, if you want to send a letter of support or an email of support, you can either send a letter to me or to Daniel McKay, who is our Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer. If you think this is the worst thing ever, and you want to protest, you can send a letter of objection. Now, if you send it, there are two ways you can do this. In the past, the National Park Service required that the letters be signed and notarized, but they've adjusted that requirement so that if you use the language that's on the bottom of the slide here, and this language, I believe, is in the letter that we sent out. If you use that language, you do not have to get the letter notarized. What you're basically saying is, under penalty of perjury, I am the owner of this property, and this is my signature. Okay, so there's that. Now, again, if you have questions about the National Register, things that we haven't answered, or things that you didn't see in any of the voluminous literature that we sent out to everybody, or if you didn't get it, because sometimes these letters go astray. Sometimes we use the Ontario County property website, and sometimes that information isn't up to date. So if someone didn't get the information and they want to talk to me about the National Register, there's my contact information. Let's say you're someone like Hazlitt Winery and you want some information about, if I do a project, can I do this to my property? Then the person who handles that part of the federal tax credit is Robin Sedgwick in her office, and there's her information. Then we have Christina, who's going to talk to you about the homeowner tax credit, but I think I've got one other slide here. This is just general information. There's our website. There's the National Park Service website that talks about the federal tax credit program. It has the best information. That's the tax incentives one. If you want to look up some properties, see if they're listed on the National Register, or just have a just curious about these things, then that's all contained in a different website, one of our other websites, the chrisparks.ny.gov website. Okay. And then if you want information about, more information about tax credits and don't want to go to the federal government, we have a place on our parks.ny.gov for tax credits and all kinds of other information about historic preservation. So with that, since this is being recorded, I'm going to skip back here, and we'll go from there. Okay. So Megan?
Yes, thank you, Virginia. And
Stop
before I
sharing
pass
your screen. Yeah, we'll get all that.
Before I pass this on to Christina to talk about tax credits, I do just want to make sure that it's very clear that being listed in the National Register of Historic Places does not place restrictions on what you do with your property as a private property owner. So this listing will not say that you can't paint your house bright turquoise. It doesn't say that you can't put an addition on your home. And it doesn't say that you would have to have your project reviewed by the state or anybody else. The only exception to that, when it would kick in a review, is if you do decide to use the tax credit program that Virginia's mentioned and Christina will talk more about. If you use that, there will be a state review they have in order to use the tax credit program. Or if you're doing a project that involves state or federal funding, generally that's going to be of any kind, but that might be grants or something else. And this would be more along the lines of maybe a commercial type project than it would be a residential. But if there's state or federal funding or permitting involved in the project, it does have to go through review with the state office as well. But just a reminder, listing in the National Register does not place restrictions on you as a private property owner and what you can and can't do with your property.
And lately I've been getting questions from private property owners worried about the information we've been sending them about the tax credit program. Some of them think that they're now going to be required to do those tax credit programs. And the answer to that is a big emphatic no. The tax credit programs are voluntary programs. It's up to you whether you want to take advantage of either the federal tax credit or the homeowner tax credit. We're not forcing you to do that. It's up to you. And I'll tell you, if you need a new roof on your house, and if you can get a 20% tax credit based on the amount that you put into putting that new roof on your house and apply it to your state taxes, I'd be getting the paperwork.
And you're already subject to state review if you use state or federal funding, permitting, or licensing, because the threshold for that review to kick in is to just be determined eligible. So getting listed is not going to actually change that. Like if someone needs a, wastewater permit from DEC and they're in the eligible district, they're already going to kick that review off. So that's nothing's going to change by having this get listed. Like that threshold is already there for those. But yes, I will not tell you what color you want to paint your house. I might judge you a little bit personally and privately, but I will not tell you can't do it.
Yes, in the process, Christina's going to talk more about this tax credit process, but it's nothing that a homeowner should be worried about should you decide to use the program. I've been working with clients for years now on using these tax credit programs, and it can seem a little bit user unfriendly at first, but it's actually a fairly straightforward process. And to be very honest, Christina is amazing to work with. I know sometimes working with people with the state can sound scary. It is not. Our SHPO staff is amazing. They're very great to work with. And Christina is a really good person to help you through that process and makes it very simple and very easy. So it's really not an onerous process either to utilize these tax credits. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to Christina.
Hi. So I realize I should have gotten the gist of this, that there's not a lot of residential properties in this district, but are you
Lucky for
seeing
you, I think everybody who is on the call right now is a residential
homeowner?
property owner. Yes, homeowner.
Yes, then this is applicable to them. So let's see. I always hate how this does the. I have to swap my screens, right? You're seeing my presenter view
Yes.
every time. There's no way to get it to not do that. Okay, that
And if
better?
it helps you at all to skip over commercial or just talk about it very lightly, even though Hazlitt is in the district, we did have a meeting with them, so they are kind of aware of the tax credits and know that if they've got questions, they can get in touch with us. So.
Yes. The biggest difference before I launch into the homeowner program is that for the commercial credits, those are really geared towards large rehabilitation projects. The threshold for how much you have to spend to qualify for a commercial rehabilitation credit is very different than the homeownership program. And you will see that when I launch into my explanation, but the homeownership program is meant to be used for people to do work on their homes. If you need to do it year after year or whatever, you can use this program. There is no limit to how many times you can use the homeownership program. Because of the expenditure requirements for the commercial program, you would only on the rarest of occasions would you ever be doing enough work twice to qualify for the program, unless you did work like 20 years ago. So it's a different program. I can definitely answer any questions anyone has about it, but yes, I'll kind of breeze through the historic homeownership credit. So it is a tax credit. They're all tax credit programs. It is all a program that is administered because of a tax law. You earn a credit based on what you spend, whether it's the commercial credit or the homeownership credit. It's a portion of what you spend. So for the homeownership credit, it's 20% of the cost of the qualified work that you do on your home. You will earn as a credit against, in this case, your New York State income taxes. So it is a dollar for dollar credit that is applied against what you owe the state of New York. For people whose income is $60,000 or below, you can get the credit as a refund if it exceeds what you owe the state. For people above that income threshold, it would just carry forward until you've used it up. So you won't lose it. It'll just go to a subsequent tax year if you don't owe that much in taxes. So the threshold I was talking about for this program, you only need to spend $5,000, at least $5,000, and just do 5% of that work on the exterior. Sorry for 1 second. I'm still in my meeting, honey. I have 2 little kids. I apologize. They're finishing their food and they're getting antsy. So don't worry, someone's watching them. So you, yes, 5% of the work has to be on the exterior. Right now, the program is valid through December 31st, 2024. As long as you initiate an application before then, you'll be able to close it out and claim the credit. We have no reason to believe that the state won't reinstitute the credit. It's just every year, every so many years it comes up for renewal. They always renew it. I would be shocked if they didn't. But as of right now, that's the date. So yeah, we already talked about the building. You have to be listed in the state, only the state register. It doesn't have to have gone to the national register. So anybody who's in those Naples districts that have been put already on the state register, you're in, and then a qualifying census tract, and you guys are all qualifying census tracts, so you're good there. So that's the tax law, in case you want to go looking it up. It's a real fun read. There's a 3-part application process. So technically, it's tax and finances program. Our role in this is to review the applications to make sure that the work is appropriate. So tax and finance relies on us. We provide 3 certifications. 1 is that it is a certified historic structure. 2, that the work that you're doing is appropriate. And then 3, that you've done the work appropriately. And then we certify your expenditures. So it's a 3-part application, but really part 1 and 2 come together, because the part 1 certification is basically if Virginia has your address, she can figure that out. So that's not complicated. But you are supposed to submit the application before you start the work. So that is also a difference between the commercial credits. With the commercial credit, you can have done some of the work before you submit the application. With the homeownership credit, According to the tax law, you have to have it approved prior to the start of work. There are some emergency situations. If a tree falls on your roof, if your boiler quits in the middle of winter, we can, have a little bit of flexibility, but the general rule is please come to us before you start your work so that we can do it. It does not take a long time to review these applications. It says it can take up to 30 days, I believe, in the instructions. And honestly, it doesn't usually take us more than a couple of weeks. And if you are in a circumstance where you need to get started right away, we'll figure something out with you. So in order to claim the credit, there's a tax claim form that you file with your taxes. That's IT 237. And the way that it works is that you claim the credit in the year that you get your Part 3 application certified. So if you were to start an application now today, finish all 3 parts of it, as long as you submit your Part 3 to us prior to December 31st in the year that you want to claim the credit, we'll get you a certification with that year on it, and then you use that with your taxes. So if you want to get it in this year, you'd have to get it to us before the end of December. We strongly suggest that people get them in by December 1st, just so that we don't, have trouble, because we get a lot at the very end of the year. Also, some of this is already, I said, oh, wait, I have to take this away because I'm excited to announce that no, not only hard copy applications are accepted. We used to only be able to accept hard copy applications because we needed an original signature. We now have also an online application. So it's essentially the same form. You're just filling it out through a program called DocuSign, which allows you to provide a secure signature so that we can, we know that it's you doing it. And it's basically the same form. You fill it out, you zip it to us online. You can even pay the fees. There are fees associated. If you're above the $60,000 income threshold, it's only $25 for the Part 2, and then the Part 3 depends on how much you've spent. So, as I said, it can take up to 30 days. It doesn't usually take that long. This is like a sample of the application. It's really just basic information. Your address. There's some questions of qualified census tract, historic district. We ask if you've started the work. In some cases, you can provide a little bit of an explanation. You certify your expenditures so we know where you are in that income threshold. There are things we ask you to attach, like photos. We rely on the photos to verify that you've done the work the way you said, and to also, see the conditions and know that the work is necessary. So we ask you, to upload photos of before and then after when you submit your Part 3. So that's essentially the same form that's online. The most important,
Christina,
yes.
Can the photos now with the DocuSign? I mean, I've already submitted my application. We sent jump drives with the photos on.
Mhm.
It's been approved for the program. Just waiting for the viticultural district to be approved.
Mhm.
And then, the painting isn't done yet. We're still waiting for the painting, but that's besides the point. But can we submit the photos? Is there a spot to attach?
In
photos
DocuSign,
now?
yep, it allows you to attach photos right through
Because
DocuSign.
I see other projects, and so, okay.
Yeah, yep. DocuSign allows you to upload, like, even if you have, like, whether it's the Part 2 or the Part 3, if you have contractor estimates that you want to put with your Part 2, it allows you to upload attachments and photos. So it's very nice in that way. So yeah, because we can't return people's flash drives, and we have piles of flash drives in the office because we can't send them back to people. The most important part to me of the application is the project worksheet. And that is where you explain to us what you're going to do. And an important part of it is the existing condition and then the proposed work. So we want to know, what is the existing condition? Is your roof, it's a worn out asphalt shingle roof. You want to put on a new asphalt shingle roof. Maybe you have, worn out original wood windows and you're going to replace them. Material is always important. It's always important to tell us the material that you're going to be using. So tell us what it is and what it's going to be, especially if it's not going to be the same material. And just as a general rule, we do not approve vinyl windows under the program or vinyl siding. So if you already have vinyl windows, we're not going to hold it against you. And technically, if you wanted to put new vinyl windows in, we couldn't stop you, but you wouldn't be able to claim the cost of that on your credit. But we'd love you to put new wood windows or better windows if you have vinyl windows, and we'll give you 20% credit for it. So you fill this out, that's part of your application. So many things qualify for the program. On, on your exterior, anything you're like replacing your roof, painting your roof, fixing your soffits, putting on gutters, anything like painting your porch, your front steps. The credit covers you basically to the bottom of that front step. So anything that is part of the footprint of your home, no driveways, no landscaping. If you have any detached outbuildings, they don't count. But if you have a carriage house, you could maybe get a barn credit for it, which I'll tell you about at the end quickly. Interior stuff, kitchen countertops, light fixtures, plumbing fixtures, heating and cooling systems, refinishing your floors, pretty much anything that you would be doing in the normal course of work in your home is going to qualify. Like cleaning and maintenance stuff don't count, like pest removal doesn't count. But if somebody's installing, if they come and put that flashing stuff around your foundation, technically that stays with the house, so that part of it would count. If you are doing the work yourself, you can't claim any costs for your labor because we don't have any way to quantify it, but you can claim the cost of materials. So paint, stucco materials, things like that. If you're doing it yourself, tile, if you've decided to tile. Even installing solar panels, and I don't know, maybe some of these vineyards want to put some solar panels on their nice flat roofs and we won't care, but even on a home, solar panels are a qualified expense. They just have to be installed appropriately. So it's like generally not visible from the public right away. If you have a south facing house, you're going to be out of luck, but maybe you can put them on your garage or elsewhere on your property. And if they're tied into the, system of your house, obviously they would be, then you could get the credit for those. And you can also get NYSERDA credits. You can get both the credits for solar. So that is nice. Things that do not qualify, as I already said, work outside the footprint of your home, and appliances. So a good way to think of it is if you pick your house up and you shook it, anything that might come loose doesn't qualify. So, kitchen appliances, window air conditioners, things like that. But a microwave above a stove doesn't qualify, but one of those drawer microwaves does qualify. We had to go through that, but generally, you're not going to take your hot water heater with you when you move, but you could take your fridge, and appliances are hard to come by nowadays. So more people are doing that. So that's pretty much it. And of course, work that does not meet the standards. So we use the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. And I think the most important one of those standards that applies to these types of credits is, we want to repair historic materials rather than replace. If they have to be replaced, they should be replaced in kind with the same type of material. If it can't be replaced with the same type of material, it should be an appropriate substitute material. So there's various levels, but that's like the most applicable one of those standards for these types of projects. You can always add work to your project. So once you've submitted your part 1 and 2 and got approved, if you realize, oh man, we got a little bit more money, we want to fix those front steps, you can submit an amendment form and just include any additional pictures that you might need to, if that area wasn't already included in your original application, and you can keep adding projects. I had somebody one year who did 9 amendments on her application. And you can always keep adding more work. And then when you're done,
It carries over multiple years, Christina.
Yes.
I have this group that I'm going to do this year and this group I'm going to do next year. Would I do an amendment or a new application for the stuff I'm going to do next year?
So if you want to claim the credit this year, and by the end of this year, you've spent at least $5,000 with 5% on the exterior, you can decide to submit a part 3. But once you submit that part 3 and we issue you a certification, your project gets closed. So if you have more work you're going to do, you would need to submit a new part 1 and 2. If you keep your project open, we don't ever close the projects. Technically, there is no date at which we say, oop, your project's closed because you haven't finished it. We don't like to see them drag on for many years because, information gets lost and people can't find their paperwork, and, but technically it can, you can keep it open for many years. So some people keep the projects open for a really long time and they just accumulate a larger credit. The credit, you cannot get more than $50,000 of credit on a single tax filing. So you'd have to spend over $250,000 to max out the homeownership credit in a single tax year. So if you're really going to spend that much money, maybe you do split it up over several years and then you get, that credit over different years. But you take the credit in the year that you get your part 3. And once we issue that part 3, that project's closed. But if you have work items that you didn't complete, so it's like, say you put in an application for 10 items and you finished 7 of them and you've met those minimum expenditures and whatnot, you can submit your part 3, close that project. Then those last couple of items that you didn't finish, you put in a new application and you just say previously approved under project number 22 PR, blah, blah, blah. And you send it in. And that's like my favorite thing to see, because I already know I approved it and I'll get you a letter really quick. So that's how that can work, keeping them open.
But the new application's got to have at least 5% outside.
Yes, yes. In order to claim the credit, we have to, that's one of the things that we're looking for when you send in a part 3 is was at least 5% of the work on the exterior. So if you're, so sometimes people have a lot of, they'll do like their roof and then they'll close it out. And the next year they want to do their kitchen, and it's an expensive kitchen. You got to have some exterior work, along with that project too. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is that you always have to do at least 5% on the exterior. If there's anybody in the district who has a home office or a duplex home, you can apply for the credit. You can still get the homeownership credit. The way it works is you can only claim a portion of the cost of the work for the work on the exterior or in shared spaces. So the best example is if you have a home that's a 2-family home and you live in 50% of it, if you replace your roof, since that's exterior, you can only claim 50% of the cost of the roof on your application. And there's a worksheet, there's a separate income producing worksheet that you use for your part 3, and it walks you through doing those calculations. But it's that percentage is based on, how much of the home you live in versus the whole square footage of the home. But any work you do on the inside, like if it's a 2-family house and you redo the kitchen in your unit, you can claim all the costs of that work. You can't claim any of the cost of interior on a rental unit. We kind of already talked about the commercial tax credits. The state, one thing I did notice is there is no cap to the federal commercial rehabilitation credit. The state commercial credit caps out at $5 million. So it's 20 or 30% depending on the cost, but you can't get more than $5 million of state commercial tax credit. And one of the biggest differences is that all of the commercial credits have to be approved by the National Park Service. You can't get the state commercial credit without getting the federal credit, because the application is the federal application. So it's basically our matching state credit piggybacks on the federal credit. So if you get the federal credit, if you're in a qualifying census tract, then you can also get the state credit. But ultimately, the National Park Service reviewers have to approve the project. We can give them our recommendations. Sometimes they disagree with our recommendations, but for the most part, we work with people, our reviewers, and that was Robin, who Virginia gave you her name. She's the reviewer for this area, and she'll work with you on your application to get things up to snuff so we can get it through the Park Service. So that's the website that Virginia gave you, our tax credit programs website. The links to our online applications are there. If you'd rather fill it out in paper and send it in, you can download the paper application. There's also instruction documents and lots of other helpful stuff. For anyone who's not in the district, who's interested in assistance, there are other programs through other state agencies that provide assistance regardless of whether your home is listed. So there's the Weatherization Assistance Program and NYSERDA's Home Energy Efficiency Program. So those programs offer some assistance. A lot of those are income-based, but they do provide assistance to people, and it may be, maybe you do want to replace your windows, and maybe you are going to use historically appropriate windows, but your house isn't on the in the districts, you can get some assistance under maybe one or both of those programs. So that's worth, it's a resource worth looking into if you don't qualify for this. That's me, that's my contact information. I will literally stay on the phone with you and help you fill out your application if you're having trouble. I mean, you can always go to Megan and Landmark Society, but like it is my job to help people with this program. And there are people who I walk through filling out the application. It seems a lot of people think like, oh, it's a state form. It's so annoying. I have to do all these things. It really does not have to be that complicated. And if you find it complicated, call me and I will explain it to you because that's my job. And I do it all day long. So, and I love explaining things. So I think that's it.
I have one more question. I'm sorry to be a pest, but
No.
If the viniculture and goes through, and I'm under the New York State residential program, does it have to wait for it to get approved at the federal level?
No.
Okay.
No, because the home ownership credit is a state credit, you only need to be listed on the state register for that program.
Okay.
You don't have to be. If you're listed on the national register, woohoo, fantastic. But
And in fact, when we presented at the state review board meeting, which this round will be September 8th, chances are very good that it will be signed for the state register on the 8th or the 9th. So send in your applications.
oh yeah, we will give you like preliminary approval. We have to use like language that says you can't claim the credit until it's actually listed, but you know, we're accepting applications. Oh, so the other thing that I also do for the office is I review grants, which I'm very busy with right now because the deadline was last week. But being listed in the National Register also opens up entities to apply for grants. We don't give grants to personal private property owners, but municipalities and non-for-profits are able to apply for historic preservation grants. Even churches can apply for historic preservation grants through our office, through the consolidated funding application. So that is another avenue of funding that's available to people within the districts. You have to be listed in the state or national register to apply for those grants, but that's another program that's very good. And and another thing that's different than the registers is I'm thinking of all these wineries. We recently launched the Historic Business Preservation Registry, and this is just a fun thing. It's not tied to any incentive programs, but if there are businesses that have operated in the state for 50 years, they could be added to the Historic Business Preservation Registry. We have a very nice website that features them. I'm not sure we have anything in Naples. I think we have a few things in that area, but I don't think we have anything in Naples.
Christine, Naples is applying for one, but it's my understanding, only have a maximum of 2. Is that correct? And from one area?
No. It's the way the business registry works is that the nominations have to be submitted by a state elected official. So governor, lieutenant governor, or your assembly member or senator. So each elected official can only submit 2 applications per term. So it depends on who your elected officials are and if they've already used up their submissions.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
They have.
Well, maybe they're up for re-election and they want to put some delicious grape pies on the registry, because I accidentally, while you guys were talking about it, looked up some pictures of those grape pies and I haven't had dinner yet and now I'm really hungry, but I am putting it on my list. I'm marking my calendar for the Grape Festival because we actually have a house in Honeoye just up the road on East Lake Road. And I want a grape pie. So I might be coming to the Grape Festival and eating a bunch of pie.
I would think that Bob and Ruth should be, a good candidate for that registry.
Yes, and it's a great program. There are no repercussions, like there is no downside to it. You don't subject yourself to any additional oversight. The one good thing is, like, when opportunities come up that are available to historic businesses, like recently the National Trust had a program for historic small restaurants, and we were able to send out information to the businesses from our registry that would have qualified, saying, hey, this grant opportunity is available. And I think somebody got one.
Buffalo.
What was it? Schwabbles?
Buffalo got it.
Yeah. got one of these grants. I'm not taking credit for letting them know, but it's, it's so, there is a little bit of an upside to being included in that group. Plus it's, it's nice to be recognized for contributing to the state for so long. I think that's all I have. I'd like to stop talking unless people have questions.
Well, thank you so much, Virginia and Christina, for being here tonight with us and going over these two programs. Again, Virginia has been working with me on the actual National Register nomination, and then Christina will be the one reviewing homeowner tax credits for those of you who are homeowners in the district. We do want to remind you that this entire presentation has been recorded, so we will be posting it on the Landmark Society's website, the Naples Project website that we have. I know if you tried to get to it within the last week or so, our website had been down. I think I'm hearing now, maybe back up. So we'll be posting this recording there. I'll also be sending it to the village and to the Naples Historical Society to post wherever they see fit. So you can share this with your neighbors, with your friends. And because the information about what the National Register listing and designation means and the tax credit information is the same across the board, regardless of which district in Naples we're talking about. This could be something if you know somebody that owns a property in one of the other two districts that's being listed from Naples, they can also look at this recording, may be helpful for them since our last recording didn't work for them. But the information is the same. So tax credit information, the process for listing a district is all going to be the same. So all of Naples will be able to watch this recording and learn about what these mean. They just won't see their boundary map in this presentation. But we will have this out again. As Christina mentioned, if you have questions about the tax credit, homeownership tax credit, you can reach out to her. You can also reach out to me at the Landmark Society, and we can either get you in touch with Christina or give you some guidance on that as well. And as I mentioned, I will be getting the edits in for the Viniculture Historic District to Virginia by Friday. And our goal is that it will go to the September board meeting. And so that means if it gets there, and as long as they like it and Virginia likes my edits, we should have you on the state register sometime in September.
Thank you. Before we disconnect, I want to thank Virginia and Christina and Megan for all the help SHPO and the Landmark Society have given to the Village of Naples, the Historical Society, and our Historic Districts Initiative. Without you, we never would have been able to get this far. So thank you all very much for what you do.
Welcome, very welcome. And you guys are doing the hard part. You're maintaining the historic properties. So keep up the good work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is a
Thank
very
you.
exciting project, and we're excited to see it almost to the finish line here. Do we have any other questions? All right, if not,
Megan, before you disconnect, you'll send us a note and let us know when this is up on your website so we can get the word out in Naples.
yes, I will do that. And I'll also, when I send you that and let you know, I'll also send you a link to the recording as well that you can share.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you all again.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. And with that, I'm going to end the recording and end the meeting. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Have a good night.
Night.